The Delphi murder case is going to court finally. At least as of this recording, it's scheduled to. We've seen so many delays in this case. Richard Allen going to get his day in court, but of course, right before it's about to happen, drama. How would this case not be having a little bit of drama right before it's supposed to start? Drama in the form of one of the key witnesses for the defense, Todd Click, a officer being charged. Yes, being brought up on charges right before the charges not having anything to do with the Delphi murder case, but arrested for forging documents and falsifying information in his role as a DCS family case manager. Joining me to discuss, Jennifer Coffindaffer, retired FBI special agent. You've been following this case from the beginning. Let me ask you, in your opinion, flat out, how does this affect the defense of Richard Allen, if at all?
Well, I think it affects it because anytime you have a defense witness that you're planning on calling and he is accused of committing a crime of moral turpitude, which is what this is, in other words, you can have witnesses on the stand that aren't accused of things to do with falsifying or lying or being fictitious. But once something like that happens, it really ruins the credibility of that witness, believe it or not. So, in other words, you can steal, you could kill somebody, you could assault somebody, and it has a much different effect in terms of legally and the perception of a jury, right, when somebody has seen to lie or falsify. And those are the allegations against Todd Click. So I think it does have an impact. And just the timing of all this, I think was purposeful.
Yeah, it's kind of hard not to look at it. I mean, the first thing I saw when I saw this was, okay, what are the charges? And I looked at him like, oh, they're just trying to discredit him. They're trying to make it look like, okay, whatever he says doesn't mean anything. Look, if he's willing to lie about this stuff and falsify these things in a DCS setting, it's about children. Why wouldn't he lie about the kids here in this case? What's going to stop him? It seems very very questionable, and it just keeps playing to the conspiracy of all of this. They are doing anything they can, the prosecution and Delphi, to discredit anything with Richard Allen and take away anyone who could bring some semblance of a defense to him.
I think all of us, I mean, first of all, if he committed these horrible crime against these two, I can't imagine anyone on this face of this earth that wouldn't want him to serve life and be in seg and just have a miserable
Mhm.
existence minimally, right? Many
Sure.
would want a death penalty situation, but that's not on the table. In any event, the point is that no one is trying to get somebody off. But what I think so many people, including myself, and I know you as well, has been concerned with is just his rights
Yeah.
as somebody that's accused and not convicted. And in this case, it's been astonishing to watch. We've talked about the incarceration, and then we talked about the fact that they took away his defense attorneys,
Mhm.
for really something that arguably they weren't responsible for. It was a third party. Um, it's been interesting to watch, and then the judge recently, and I'm just talking about the big items, precluded the third party culprit defense concerning other individuals that could have possibly done this. And again, I mean, you have an affidavit from an FBI agent pointing to probable cause that someone else was involved other than Richard Allen, and for him not to be able to use that for the jury to consider. That's all we're talking about.
Yeah.
We're just talking about the jury being able to look at other possibilities regarding this crime.
Mhm.
And, they've been taken off the table. Although, interestingly, Tony, the defense has just asked for Keegan Klein and put him on the list as a defense witness. So I don't know whether they're just trying to buck up to the order that Judge Gold put out. But boy, if Keegan Klein ends up testifying, that is going to be so interesting.
It will be very interesting. We'll see if it happens. It's just this whole thing. It's just shocking. Todd Click, he was one of the originals on this case. He was one of them to point out, hey, this Odinist stuff might have something to it. And he is scheduled to testify. We'll see if that actually does happen. But with Odinism not being allowed into this case, by the defense, you have a witness here. Could Todd Click introduce that in some way, shape, or form? Would he be allowed to say anything about Odinism or anything about his initial findings if he were to testify in this case?
I think it'll be shut down based on goals orders,
Hmm.
and that's what is I find so interesting here. It seems like the defense is pushing the envelope, saying, "All right, just because you say we can't introduce third-party culprit, it doesn't mean we're not going to put all our witnesses on that could provide this information, and maybe I don't know, try to sneak it in. I don't know. Gold doesn't seem to be somebody who is going to let that happen.
Yeah.
But it'll depend on the direct questioning that is asked by the defense team. I just can't believe this is one trial that we're not going to be able to see anything.
Mhm.
I understand the cameras if she doesn't want the hoopla,
Sure.
but to not be able to have reporters in there live tweeting,
Mhm.
letting us all know the detail by detail what's happening in this case. I'm just another ruling that is just head shaking.
It is. I mean, I tried to digest that the other day a little bit, going, gosh, they can't tweet, they can't do this, they can't. But you know what? 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we had this. That's all we had. And you weren't necessarily live reporting or live tweeting or anything from a courtroom, and you'd walk out of there with your notepad and you'd report on it. So, in a lot of ways, it's like we can manage. Certainly, technology has made it a lot easier for us and a lot more, I would say, accurate in terms of reporting because it's not just what can I get on this piece of paper as quickly as I can and still keep up with what's going on. Live tweeting certainly provides a more accurate record than just that. But I think it can still be done. I still think this case can be reported on fairly accurately. It's still another veil of secrecy that the public isn't going to get to hear in real time. But I think there's not going to be a lot of business for funny games to be played because there are going to be a lot of reporters in that courtroom looking for anything that is out of line. Don't you agree?
I agree. I think the biggest problem is when anybody comes out of a courtroom that's a reporter, they have their own skew, their
Hmm.
own slant, exactly how they interpreted the words that were spoken. I always use the analogy, I'm homesick or I'm homesick. Are
Hmm.
you home not feeling well or do you miss home? And these reporters are going to be able to certainly put their own skew on how they perceive a witness comes off, how they perceive goal comes off. And I think I mentioned that it's possible. I haven't seen the ruling for sure yet, but that she might not even allow public viewing of the exhibits. And if that is also gleaned from the record until after this trial is over, I just think it does such a disservice.
It does, but at the same point, we have to remember here he pretty much has a get a new trial free card in his back pocket, no matter what happens here. Uh, but if he were to do that, let's say he is convicted here, would it have to be Judge Gull again that would try this, or would it be someone else? Or does Judge Gull have the option if they were to get a new trial here?
Well, a couple of thoughts here. First of all, we don't know who the appellate attorneys will be on this. We're
Hmm.
going to have an appellate lodged, but depending on the caliber, I mean, you just never know whether an appeal would be granted, Tony, even in light of everything
True.
we've seen. We just don't know. So, in a sense, I unfortunately don't have the faith you have in the appeal until I see who the appellate attorney is. Um, Number two, if it were appealed and went back, it would go to back to goal. I mean,
Hmm.
potentially. Um, but right now, the defense has their hands totally, hamstrung.
Yep.
As far as I know, there's no defense out there. There's no alibi defense. There's no third party culprit. So I don't know what they're going to come up with. And now the witnesses. I mean, it's not the prosecution's fault. I will say that Click apparently
Hmm.
lied on other documents. The other thing is, until he's convicted, it can't be used in court
Hmm.
typically. Allegations don't count,
Yeah.
only convictions. So from that standpoint, even though in the public opinion, that's bad news, it shouldn't be allowed in court. I can't imagine Judge Gold would allow it because it's not a conviction.
Can they deny him from testifying, Todd Click?
No.
Okay.
No, well, the judge can do anything she wants
Hmm.
if there's some law she feels. I think the bigger issue is, what is he really going to be able to say?
Hmm.
If he's not allowed to talk about Odinism in any way, shape, or form, they're not going to be able to talk about Odinism, but will they do it in sort of a veiled way? In
Yeah.
other words, was there anything you saw from a religious, right, not mentioning Odinism,
Yeah.
that you found to be interesting or something?
How were were the sticks, or was there anything unusual about the way you found the bodies? There's a lot of ways that facts in this case can be introduced, and then people can deduce their decisions based on what ends up being presented. It's just what is she going to allow? Because she seems to have carte blanche in terms of control over all of this, and it doesn't really seem to match up with how the United States judicial system typically works. It seems like this is pretty much whatever she wants, she's going to do, whether or not it really is truly fair. And that's at the end of the day. Who knows if Richard Allen did this? We just need to present this case. We need to see this case in its entirety to make that judgment. The jury needs to see that to make that judgment and not have a skewed version of it being presented just because one person wants to present the case in a very one sided manner.
I agree, Tony. And what I always juxtapose with is the Brian Koberger Idaho 4 case, because there you have a defendant that has gotten the luxury of expert witness after expert witness. Millions and millions and millions of dollars are going to be spent on his defense. He was always in a county facility. He had hair gel and beautiful suits to wear. He wasn't, chained up
Hmm.
and drug into a courtroom. It's the absolute opposite
Yeah.
of Richard Allen. And in reality, it needs to be skewed more to how Brian Koberger is being treated and the defense he is being allotted, at least to some degree. That is over the top, in my opinion, when you have three experts the government is paying for his, just to prove one point as an example. They'll
Mhm.
have three experts basically say the same thing that we're paying for. And Richard Allen didn't get defense expert
Yeah.
witnesses. It's just amazing if you juxtapose those two
Yeah.
cases and treatment. And Richard Allen has been treated, I think, how every U.S. citizen should fear being treated
Yeah.
as a presumed innocent person.
And if this is accepted and this is just allowed to go on the way it has, we're going to see more people treated this way. If nobody comes in and stops this from happening, if it's shown that, hey, look, they got away with treating him like shit, despite everybody raising their hands going, what are you doing? They got away with it. They have the power. They're going to get away with it again in other cases. It's shocking that in one part of our country, a accused can be treated one way and another completely the opposite. Obviously, nothing is going to be fair in life, but the judicial system is all about this. It's about trying to be fair and just. And it's not a fair and just system if one person charged with a crime is treated uh, lovely and gets all the resources that they need to defend themselves, and the other not at all. But we're talking about the same judicial system. That is a broken system.
Agreed, Tony.
Hey, thanks for checking out the video. Be sure to follow us wherever you download podcasts, and especially Apple Podcasts, where you can get advanced episode and premium content on our premium channel right there. Also, be sure to follow us on social media so you don't miss any breaking updates on the stories that matter to you most. We're on TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook. Just search Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Bruschi, and you'll find us right there. Again, thanks for watching.